we met in person, so glad to see your smiling faces. And for those of you we haven't met, I'm Julie Bell. I'm work for the National Park Service in the Denver Service Center Planning Division, and we are the ones that will be producing this study document when it's all said and done. And my name is listed as the contact if you have any questions or want to reach out for any reason, and we'll share that with you as well during this webinar. Just a couple few housekeeping things. I think by now, after 3 years of virtual meetings, we're probably all familiar with how Microsoft Teams works, but just in case, if you would like to have your camera on, we'd love to see your shining face. If not, that's fine too, but please mute yourself if you're not talking or asking a question, just so we don't get any background noise. We are recording this meeting today, so those who are not able to attend will have an opportunity to view it. We'll also be recording the question and answer at the end, so just be aware of that. We're just going to give you a quick overview of the study, which a lot of you already know about. Carrie Miller will be giving us a presentation on management options, and I'll let her introduce herself when we're ready for that. And then at the end, we'll open it up for questions that you may have. And you can either turn on your camera and unmute yourself and ask questions, or you can type them in the chat, or any combination of those. And we've got enough folks from the Park Service here that we're monitoring the chat, and we'll be sure to capture all of your questions and comments. Does anyone have any questions at this time before we dive in? Okay, perfect. Well, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Carrie Miller, and she's going to share her screen and tell you all about many different options of Park Service management.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, Julie, I think you just turned off your camera. Very good. I was just going to ask you to give me a thumbs up if you can hear me loud and clear. Awesome. Thank you.
And we can see your screen.
Okay, super. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Carrie Miller, and I work for the National Park Service in the Washington Support Office, where my focus is on special resource studies. And I'm showing you this slide presentation that I will show for about the next 40 minutes or so. It's very information-packed, and we will take questions at the end. The title of this presentation is National Park Service, or our acronym NPS in shorthand, Park Management Supplemental Information for Special Resource Studies. This webinar is intended for the property owners who own Rosenwald schools or related sites that are being studied by our National Park Service team for the Julius Rosenwald and Rosenwald Schools Special Resource Study, which is currently underway. Our study team has met many of you in recent weeks, as have I. I've had the pleasure of meeting many of you, and I'm very happy that you've made time to join us today. It's great to see you. We appreciate your time here to join us. The goal of this presentation is to provide information about a range of management options for national park units and other opportunities for support to help inform your feedback to us about your property. In particular, we hope that this information we share with you today gives you an overview of the variety of ways the National Park Service works with others to preserve and maintain historic sites. We also want to give you this opportunity to ask us questions in a group setting for the benefit of hearing comments, questions, and concerns from the other property owners like yourself. Our agenda for the next 90 minutes or so is to share examples of partnerships at national parks, other opportunities for NPS support outside of park unit designation, the next steps of our study process, and after the presentation, we'll use the remaining time to answer your questions. Before we get started, here's a high-level overview about the National Park System. The National Park Service is a federal agency within the Department of Interior. As of today, the National Park Service manages and administers 424 national park units within the National Park System. You'll notice that we call them all parks in shorthand. To us, all national park units are important, whether it's the very first park, Yellowstone National Park, or a small national park unit that perhaps you haven't heard of. They're all national park units, and we administer them from the same vantage point. They're in all 50 states and in most US territories, and they have a wide range of ownership arrangements. So explaining those is part of our goal today. The theme of this presentation is about partnerships and the collaborative management of many national park units. First, a note about our terminology. Informally, we use the term partnership park to describe a national park unit whereby a partnering entity owns a significant portion of the land within a park boundary. In 2017, the National Park Service System Plan was prepared to guide the agency for our next 100 years. Throughout this plan, the importance of forging new partnerships and strengthening existing ones is emphasized for the purpose of working with others on shared goals for stewardship, conservation, interpretation, and education, and also for the benefit of leveraging staffing and funding opportunities for all. The publication Branching Out Approaches in National Park Stewardship is another publication that stresses the role of partnerships for parks. And this document describes many good examples. The websites for both of these documents, where you can find the PDFs of these reports, are linked here in this presentation, and we will share a PDF copy of this presentation after today's webinar, so you can use all the links shown here. Next, I'll show you some examples of different ownership arrangements to give you a sense of the possibilities that national park partnerships can include. The first example is the Medgar and Merle Evers Home National Monument in Jackson, Mississippi. Here, the NPS owns and fully manages the Evers home, which is pictured here on the slide, and 2 adjacent undeveloped parcels, all of which were donated to NPS from Tougaloo College. The NPS has full ownership and management of all 3 properties, which makes this first example a relatively straightforward one. However, I'll note that the park staff's administrative offices are located off-site in a lease space that NPS does not own. And as a side note for your awareness, creating this park was authorized by an act of Congress in 2019, but the park wasn't established until 2020, about 6 months later, after Tougaloo College transferred their property to the National Park Service. That formal property transfer had to happen before the park was officially established, and that requirement was stipulated in legislation. So I'm just noting that example of how the park went from authorization in law to the actual establishment by the National Park Service, even in straightforward situations where the college was ready to transfer the properties immediately. It still took some time to establish the park. This is a park map of Medgar and Merle Evers Home National Monument. The map shows the areas owned by the National Park Service, which are shown outlined with a green boundary line in the upper left side of the map. And you can see that the park has a relatively small footprint. The park is situated within a residential neighborhood. Figuring out public parking and public access to the Evers home will be part of this park's future planning efforts. And that planning is an example of the long, slow process of standing up a new park that I'll mention again later in the presentation. The details of how a park operates is not figured out when it's created by Congress, but it happens as part of a deliberative planning process after the park becomes established. The next example involves partial NPS ownership at Tuskegee Institute National Historic Site in Tuskegee, Alabama. Tuskegee University owns and manages a 50-acre campus and historic district, which comprises the majority of the land and buildings within the park boundary. The National Park Service owns only 4 buildings within that boundary, including the Booker T. Washington home, the Oaks, which is pictured here on the slide, NPS also owns and manages the building that housed George Washington Carver's laboratory, which is now used as a museum, and 2 other buildings for administrative offices and a maintenance facility for park needs. NPS also owns some, but not all, of the Institute's collection of objects and artifacts. Uniformed park staff provide guided tours of the historic campus through an agreement with the university to do so. Here's the park map for Tuskegee Institute National Historic Site. Note how the park boundary, which is outlined in green, encompasses a large area. Within that park boundary, the NPS owns only 4 buildings, which are shown circled in red. Everything else within the green outlined is owned and managed by Tuskegee University. So again, this is an example of a partial NPS ownership within a larger park boundary. Another example of a partnership park is Little Rock Central High School National Historic Site in Little Rock, Arkansas. Little Rock Central High School is a still operating public high school with 2,500 students. It's owned and maintained by the city's Little Rock School District. The NPS does not manage or maintain the school building or grounds. Like with Tuskegee University, the NPS has an agreement with the school district that allows NPS-led tours on the school grounds. You can envision a park ranger wearing an NPS uniform leading tours in front of the school building. NPS also provides preservation maintenance and assistance to the school district to help them maintain the historic buildings and grounds. The NPS owns and operates an adjacent visitor center, which was purpose-built. It's not a historic building, and a related historic building and commemorative garden. Those are across the street from the high school. Therefore, most of the NPS's activities happen at the visitor center, not at the high school building itself, because it is an active high school. Here's the park map. The bright blue line is the park boundary, which surrounds the school campus and the NPS properties. Within the boundary, the NPS owns and manages the visitor center, the Magnolia Mobile Service Station across the street from the visitor center, and a commemorative garden at the upper right corner of the boundary area, all of which are shown on this map and circled in red. Reconstruction Era National Historical Park in South Carolina is an example of a national park with partial NPS ownership that includes preservation easements. In this park, NPS owns only 2 buildings, including a non-historic visitor center, which is pictured on the slide. Other buildings within the park boundary are owned by other federal agencies and by private owners. The NPS is authorized to acquire properties by willing sellers, donation, or land exchange. The park's initial establishment started with the toehold by owning just those 2 buildings that it currently owns, but that authorizing legislation and the bill that established the park allows the NPS to acquire additional properties with within the park boundary in the future, should the opportunity to arise through a willing seller or by new donation or land exchange. So what the park started out as is starting small with the potential to grow. NPS holds preservation easements on several historic sites that it does not own, including a still functioning church within the park boundary. Preservation easements are permanent agreements that stay with a property deed, not the owner. Easements require the preservation of the building as it is stipulated in the terms of the easement. Their requirements ensure the NPS's long-term investment in the preservation of a building, and they benefit the property owner by providing a tax credit incentive. I've mentioned that the NPS frequently uses agreements with others. In comparison with easements, agreements reside with a property owner and are temporary because they expire after a period of time. It's because of that, agreements have more opportunities for changes. This park map shows the dispersed nature of Reconstruction Era National Historical Park. The park boundary consists of 3 separate areas. Again, NPS owns only 2 buildings within this park boundary, which are shown circled here in red. The park can seek to form partnerships with others within the park boundary for interpretation and educational programs or other purposes. Boston National Historical Park is an example of a park where the NPS owns no property, but operates using a variety of partnerships in a large park boundary across the city of Boston, Massachusetts. In such a large area, numerous partnerships allow disparate historical sites to operate as a coherent park unit. Examples of partner agreements include a cooperative agreement with the City of Boston so that NPS can operate a visitor center and education space in Faneuil Hall, which is pictured here in the slide. A 99-year lease with the city to use the Bunker Hill Museum and provide space for an NPS office and rotating exhibits. The lease stipulates that the partnership be with the Charlestown Historical Society or its successor organization. And the park includes a lease with the city to use the old State House. However, an agreement allows the Bostonian Society to run the operations and maintain the building, not the NPS. So these are each examples of the different ways that agreements can be drawn up specifically for each park situation. Here is a park map of Boston National Historical Park. Again, the sites and museums in the park are owned and operated by others that work with the National Park Service using a variety of cooperative agreements. The final example is Manhattan Project National Historical Park. This is another example of a national park unit where the National Park Service owns no property within its 3-site park boundary, which is in Hanford, Washington, Los Alamos, New Mexico, and Oak Ridge, Tennessee, shown here on the park map on the slide. You can see how this park is nationwide in its geographic scope, which makes it fairly unique within the national park system. Here, the park is jointly administered by the National Park Service and the Department of Energy, the DOE, using a memorandum of agreement that specifies each agency's roles and responsibilities. NPS and DOE collaborate to tell the complete story of the Manhattan Project's role in World War II. NPS's role is to provide national park administration, interpretation, education, and technical assistance. DOE is responsible for facility management, operations, maintenance, access, historic preservation, and they also provide tours of certain historic sites. So to put it simply, NPS takes the lead on visitor services and interpretation, while the DOE manages the properties. Next, I'd like to make you aware of certain aspects involved in establishing new national park units. But first, as a reminder, a special resource study, such as the Julius Rosenwald and Rosenwald Schools Special Resource Study, does not itself create a new park unit when it's completed and transmitted to Congress. Only Congress can create the park by passing a law, or the president using the Antiquities Act. But here, for your awareness, here is the process by which park units are established. So, as I mentioned a moment ago, first, Congress passes a law to authorize the new unit of a national park system. If or when that could happen, when that law will pass, it's up to Congress to decide. The president also has the authority to proclaim national monuments using the Antiquities Act. But national monuments have the same protections and management of national parks when they are part of the national park system. If Congress passes a law that authorizes federal property acquisition, then the NPS would work with property owners to discuss what is possible, such as a sale to the federal government by fair market value, possibly by donation. If there are no willing sellers or options for acquiring the land specified at that time, then nothing happens and NPS waits. There is no timeline or deadline for setting up a new park after it's authorized by Congress. Once all the requirements stipulated by the law are met, the NPS director has to approve the establishment of the park. At that point, NPS can request funding from Congress to operate the park. Establishing a new park is a long, slow process. It can take up to 10 years to become operational with park staff, facilities, and operations for visitation and programs, stewardship and maintenance, etc. Site improvements may be needed before public visitation can happen. Park staffing and funding is very minimal to start, typically 1 or 2 full-time staff and a total budget of less than $250,000. Collaborating with park partner entities to set up the partnership agreements may be needed. Here are several frequently asked questions about establishing a new park unit. After a park is established, when are the partnership agreements created? The details of partnerships may be worked out in cooperative agreements, memorandum of its understanding, a park's general management plan, or combinations of these or other tools. Agreements are specific to each park and they vary widely, as you can see in the previous examples in this presentation. There is no one model of a partnership agreement. Another frequently asked question is, does new park establishment come with funding? When Congress authorizes a new park unit, it typically does not appropriate funding for that park at the same time. NPS would typically request funding from Congress after the unit has completed the steps necessary for establishment. New parks are supported through the NPS's annual appropriation from Congress. Individual park units compete with other parks for funding to support projects that are not covered by the park's own annual base funding. And the last question shown here is, can NPS accept donations to help the park? Yes, within law and policy that guide how donations may be accepted and used. And for those laws and policy, we direct you to see Director's Order 21, Donations and Philanthropic Partnerships, which you can find online. There are many other opportunities for National Park Service preservation and support beyond establishing a national park unit. So here's some brief information about those other opportunities. One is affiliated area designation. This designation offers an alternative to creating a new park unit to address issues that can best be handled through a cooperative agreement rather than through federal ownership and management by the National Park Service. Affiliated areas are nationally significant areas or sites that are not owned or administered by the NPS. The site can wear the NPS arrowhead logo to mark its affiliation. NPS can provide technical or financial assistance using a formal cooperative relationship, but the degree to which that happens depends on the agreement. In return, the site, managed by others than the NPS, must be managed consistent with the standards that apply to national park units. An agreement between the site and the National Park Service would define the roles and responsibilities concerning the site's preservation, maintenance, and interpretation. The National Park Service also supports network programs, which are external programs that provide assistance and coordination for sites that are thematically connected. One example, just shown here on the slide, is the Underground Railroad Network to Freedom program. Its purpose is to be a catalyst for innovation, partnerships, and scholarship for sites that represent the Underground Railroad by connecting sites across boundaries and generations. The NPS plays a coordinating role. The program itself has no ownership or management of the sites or properties. Rather, program staff serve as organizers to share information and opportunities to members, host online presentations and webinars, help connect members with one another, and celebrate member accomplishments with annual awards. Network members can be sites, programs, facilities with a verifiable connection to Underground Railroad history. Members can include interpretive and educational facilities such as museums. The geographic scope of the Network to Freedom program is nationwide, over 700 members in 39 states, plus Washington, D.C. and the U.S. Virgin Islands. The network includes a competitive grant program, which disperses grants of up to $10,000 each for member projects. Members can apply for grants each year. The amount of annual funding is allocated by Congress. Last year, the program gave a total of $150,000 in grants, each of $10,000 or less. So I'm describing this example because one can imagine a similar network program established to support Rosenwald schools and sites to help share information, learn from each other, possibly apply for competitive grants if the program includes a grant program. A Rosenwald School Network program would need to be established by Congress and funded through congressional appropriations in order for it to be created and become operational. So the special resource study can identify the potential for a network program as another opportunity for preserving and supporting Rosenwald schools and sites separate from any park designations that Congress may enact. The network program would allow you to keep doing what you're doing now, maintaining and owning your school site, with the added benefit of membership to the program, which could include grant funding opportunities if that is authorized as part of this program. On the right side of the slide are the names of two other NPS programs, including the African American Civil Rights Network, which, as a steward of a Rosenwald school or related site, you might already be qualified to become a member of this program, and also the Japanese American World War II History Network, which is a new network program that was established by Congress just this past January. Finally, opportunities for historic preservation that you can pursue now are listing in the National Register of Historic Places. A National Register listing can allow a site to be eligible to apply for preservation grants or other forms of NPS assistance. So contact your state historic preservation office to learn whether you're already listed or how to pursue a nomination if you are not already nominated. The NPS African American Civil Rights Network. This network program plays a coordinating role for sites and programs that commemorate, honor, and interpret the history of the African American Civil Rights Movement. You can learn about becoming a member site by visiting the NPS website, nps.gov, and type in African American Civil Rights Network. The NPS Historic Preservation Fund offers many opportunities for historic preservation grant funding, including the African American Civil Rights Grants and through the Underrepresented Community Grant Program. And there are also more than 54 other opportunities for community assistance offered by the National Park Service. So to learn more, visit the nps.gov website. National Heritage Areas, finally, check to see if your site, your property, is already located within a National Heritage Area. National Heritage Areas are community-led and coordinated by nonprofit organizations that support and promote history, preservation, and recreation within their areas. They're great sources of assistance. Visit the National Heritage Area website at nps.gov to learn more and find out whether you're located in one of the 62 National Heritage Areas located across the country. Regardless of where this Rosenwald Special Resource Study goes or what might happen after the study is transmitted to Congress, the National Park Service offers many ways to help you do the important work you're doing now or want to do. You don't need to wait until the study is completed to pursue these opportunities. These last two slides are the next steps. So first, we want to hear your feedback. If you haven't already written to us to respond to our notification letter that we sent late June of last summer, please do so as soon as possible. Or if you've already responded but now want to revise or add to your previous response statement, you're welcome to do that now too. Here's what we want to know. Please tell us your feedback about the following. If Congress creates a national park unit for Rosenwald schools or sites, would you like your property included? If your answer is yes, are you potentially interested in selling or donating your property? Would you prefer to retain ownership of your property? And in that case, would you be interested in a partnership agreement with the National Park Service that would allow the public to access and visit your school or site? Would you be interested in alternatives to park unit establishment, such as affiliated area designation or becoming a member of a network program if Congress chooses to create those options? Or do you prefer to have no role in the new national park unit? This answer is okay too. The study is impartial and it will communicate your wishes accordingly. And is there anything else important for the study team, the NPS study team, to know? Please let us know. You can submit your feedback by email to Julie Bell, or the study project manager, and Julie's email is julie_a_bell@nps.gov, as written here in the slide. You can attach your response in a letter in that email. You can also just write your feedback directly into that email. It does not need to be formally written to us. Any way you can deliver your feedback to us will be great and very helpful. For us, our next step is to develop this special resource study. So first, the team will continue its study analysis, which is ongoing. This will include your feedback in their analysis, and then they will develop the draft study document. That draft document will be shared internally for additional input and for review. When ready, it's shared with the Department of Interior staff for their review and input as well. The very last step is the Secretary of the Interior transmitting the final study to Congress. At that point, the study can be shared publicly, and that's when you can view it. The study development stage is an internal process, so you may not hear from the study team during this period of time when the document is being developed and reviewed. While the study team is doing their work over the next year, you can follow the planning process by visiting the project webpage, which is shown here on the slide, www.parkplanning.nps.gov/Rosenwald. So next, we will take your questions. So I'll stop sharing in a moment, but I want to let you know that to ask a question here on the Teams platform, you can raise your hand. And in doing so, you can unmute yourself to ask a question. You can also type in your question in the chat field here using the Teams format, and someone will read your question aloud. Julie Bell will be helping me answer your questions by watching for your questions, and she will either answer or redirect your questions to me or our NPS colleagues present today. And as a reminder, we are recording this meeting, including your questions, which may include your names if you verbally share them. So if you don't want your face or your voice recorded, please enter your question in the chat and we will read them. I will go ahead and stop sharing for the moment. Okay, thank you all for bearing with me of that long presentation. Oh, look, I'm back. I'm glad to see that everyone didn't drop off. So what questions do you have? That was a lot of information, and there are no wrong questions.
Yes, Mr. Damer.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. How long does this process take? Roughly. Any idea?
Well, as Carrie said, the study process, we will conclude it in May of next year. Us just collecting the information and producing a report. Then it will be transmitted to the Secretary of the Interior, who will then pass it on to Congress. Once it leaves our NPS office, we don't have any control over the timing. It's all with the Secretary and your legislators. So sometimes they happen quickly and other times it can take years. So unfortunately, we can only answer as far as what this team is doing and our timeline.
I will add to that though, even though when you hear years, that's probably very jarring. I will say that either that has been true in the past. In the past several months, there have been many improvements, and it's been more of a matter of months rather than years. So yeah, we will be eager to have the study be transmitted to Congress as soon as it can be. But as Julie said, once it's out of our hands, it could be a few months at that point.
You said June next year, right? Not this year.
Right. 2024. Yeah. This is a big study, so it's taking some time to gather all the information. And as Carrie said, you know, we just finished our trips to look at the schools that are in the study, and now we'll write all that information up. And that's why, you know, you still have time if, as Carrie mentioned, if you haven't responded to our questions or want to revise them, there's still time for you to do that. Any other questions? Carrie did a fantastic job in giving you all the information.
Can I ask for general feedback? Did the slides and the information make sense? Were you surprised to learn how many parks that we do have in the Park Service that run with partnerships, where partnerships are essential? And I do see that looks like Ms. Mack has her hand raised. So Julie, I'll let you go with that.
Okay. All right. Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. I unfortunately have had to multitask with work. So I did have a question in regards to the time frame. You stated next May, which I understand, and now you have concluded your on-site visit. So what would be required for the individual sites? Is there any additional information, or is that something that you will just communicate with us? If you need this in regards to writing up your report, I just would like to know in regards to expectations.
Yeah, no, thank you. Very good question. You know, we've reached out to each of you. We've talked face to face with some of you. So at this point, we're not in need of any other information from you. Like I said, unless you haven't provided us any feedback to those questions that Carrie raised, you know, we'd love to hear from you, because that all helps feed the study report that we are preparing, and the more detail that we can have in there, the better. So if there's something you want to add or amend, we're happy to hear from you. Unless, as we go through our analysis, we have any questions for you, we may reach out. But for the most part, we should have all the information that we need.
Okay, thanks, Julie.
You bet. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
One other question. And
Yes.
You will email us the recording?
Yes.
Okay. All right then.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, we, as Carrie mentioned, we'll also create a PDF version of the presentation that she gave as well.
Mm-hmm. So how many sites did you visit?
We visited 10 schools across
okay.
9 states. Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, good.
Yeah. And it was great to see them all, and, you know, great to meet all of you that we did have a chance to talk with. That was very rewarding and fulfilling for our team, for sure.
Oh, great.
And,
Good.
and yeah, and to hear about the great work that you're all doing to preserve these schools. Any other questions? Well, you're just a very easy group to deal with. I credit Carrie for providing very thorough information to you all too. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, like I said, feel free to reach out to me at any time if something comes up. If you want to provide more information, or if you think of something, tonight when you can't sleep, or next week, whenever. Happy to still communicate with you and answer any questions that may come up in the future. So, all right, keep doing the good work that you're doing. It was, like I said, very encouraging to see your passion for preserving these schools and keeping them as a vital part of your communities. And that's, from a historian and a preservation perspective, that is great to see.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Thank you
thank
all.
you.
Thanks for your time today. Take good care.
I certainly do appreciate it. Thank you.
You bet.
Thank you.